When you think of the unhinged and darkest areas of the internet, few things ever come close to the disturbing subculture built around an allergy medication. It's sometimes called schizophrenia in a bottle. Misuse can trigger strange mental disorders such as HPPD, which is where someone feels like they are stuck experiencing the hallucinations and sensations of a trip all of the time. Its profile is unassuming, an over-the-counter medication that's found in damn near every store in the United States, including gas stations. This accessibility is truly harrowing. Here's why. Benadryl is simply a brand name. The active ingredient is a compound called diphenhydramine. In inner circles, it's often known by its abbreviation, DPH, a term I will use in this video. Diphenhydramine is a first-generation antihistamine and anticholinergic that has been used to alleviate symptoms of the common cold and treat allergic reactions since it was first sold commercially in 1946. When ingested in amounts you should never take, it also classifies as a hallucinogen, a subclass known as a deliriant. Deliriants are nothing like LSD or psilocybin. You don't see vivid colors and geometric shapes. Deliriants induce delirium, a state where hallucinations are so lifelike that real life and hallucinations become indistinguishable. Hearing voices, talking to imaginary people, disembodied shadow people, the Hat Man, spiders, ticks, hallucinating dead friends and relatives, intense paranoia, feelings of guilt and shame, losing track of time and space altogether are just some of the common experiences reported by users. These experiences may seem random and may even seem hard to believe, but they are very common and very real. These nightmarish hallucinations have sparked an influx of online communities, memes, and speculation that there may be something more to the world that DPH seems to reveal. But before we get started, this is a brand new iceberg created by me. I structured it to bring you entries that you never heard before, deeper dives on known information, and even a couple of updates from previous videos. Check the ending of this video for my contact information if you have any entries that you think need to be added to the iceberg, because this is part 1 of 4 videos lined up with a goal of 100 total entries. Consider supporting my work through Patreon, where you get more videos and perks like access to my research and script. Be sure to join my Discord server, the Hatman Archives, where you can chat with me and other like-minded individuals. Links to everything in the description box. But for now, we have a rabbit hole to dive into.
We interrupt our program to bring you this important message.
How would you feel if your employer was able to look at the websites that you've been searching up on your phone? Well, here's something that a lot of people don't know. Whoever owns the Wi-Fi that you connect to, they can see exactly what websites you've been looking at and other personal information. Incognito mode and clearing your search history does nothing to prevent this. That's why I personally use and partnered up with, no joke, the #1 ranked VPN in the world, ExpressVPN. ExpressVPN encrypts your internet traffic and hides your IP address. This makes sure that your browsing activity is completely invisible to third parties like Wi-Fi operators and your internet service provider. Now, with a click of a button, you can pretend to be anywhere in the world. All you have to do is download the app, pick the location you want to pretend to be in, and that's literally it. Hackers, your internet providers, public and private Wi-Fi owners, nefarious third parties, they will all be unable to steal your data or even look at it. The early internet used to be filled with websites that were owned by real people. Now it's completely owned by corporations who make stupid amounts of money by secretly collecting your personal information and selling it to other corporations. And with Identity Defender, a free add-on service available to US customers, ExpressVPN removes your data from those sneaky data brokers. And it also makes sure that your information isn't floating around in the dark web. ExpressVPN only invests in premium servers, making them consistently faster than any other VPN provider. Protect up to 8 devices simultaneously with one subscription. Find out how you can get 4 months free by scanning the QR code on the screen or clicking the link in the description box, or by going to expressvpn.com/cryptidcandy. Once again, that's expressvpn.com/cryptidcandy. Thank you, ExpressVPN, for sponsoring this video. A little before bed. While some reach for a bottle of Benadryl during allergy season, others reach for it nightly. Diphenhydramine is a sedative. The drowsy effects of diphenhydramine are so prominent that it's often accentuated for marketing purposes. Taking it to fall asleep is extremely common, but it's proving to be damaging to the brain long term and causes more immediate cognitive impairment than drinking alcohol. The sedating effects can last longer than a day, which is why the FAA does not allow pilots to fly after taking Benadryl for at least 60 hours. The sedating effects occur because diphenhydramine crosses the blood-brain barrier, a protective shield around the brain, made of tightly packed cells that only allow essential nutrients and oxygen to pass through, and blocks out anything harmful. Diphenhydramine crosses this blood-brain barrier, affecting the brain directly. This is the speculated reason that multiple studies have linked Benadryl use with potentiating the risks for dementia and Alzheimer's disease. More on that coming up. But that doesn't happen to me. There are a lot of people that just can't believe that DPH causes hallucinations. I took X amount and I never saw the hat, man. Because of its over-the-counter status, some don't even believe it's truly dangerous, going as far as labeling headline stories of teens that died due to the horrible DPH trend in 2020 as potential fake stories. The threshold of diphenhydramine sensitivity can vary on many factors. Children and the elderly are particularly sensitive to DPH. Children under 6 years old should never be given diphenhydramine, as it's caused unexpected fatalities by parents who wanted to help their restless child go to sleep. This is actually a common and sometimes fatal mistake by parents and babysitters. Hallucinations and delirium can occur with children and the elderly, even with topical cream formulation. In fact, there have been deaths caused by the DPH anti-itch cream. Some factors that affect sensitivity include, but are not limited to, everyone's liver breaking down diphenhydramine at different rates, pre-existing medical conditions such as heart disease and epilepsy, taking additional or combining substances, as well as a person's body weight. Not to mention, those who use DPH to fall asleep will also develop a degree of tolerance over time. Aside from crossing the blood-brain barrier, to further understand why DPH is so dangerous, we need to understand what DPH does to the brain. Diphenhydramine is in a class of medications called anticholinergics. Anticholinergics block a brain chemical called acetylcholine, an important neurotransmitter needed for memory, paying attention, and even to move muscles. As we age, the natural production of acetylcholine decreases, which is why the elderly are particularly sensitive to DPH. Everyone's baseline acetylcholine production is also different. Studies are showing that anticholinergics have many degenerative and negative effects on the brain over time. One recent study found that anticholinergic medications such as Benadryl increased the risk of dementia by up to 54% in only 3 months of use. Due to these wide array of variables, you can begin to see why DPH use is dangerous, especially because you never know how your brain and body will react. Delirium. Imagine this. You're sitting in your room talking to a friend that you haven't seen for a very long time. You're lost in conversation. After a while, you have a disturbing realization. You remember that the friend you're talking to had died years ago. The moment you realize it, your friend is no longer there. This is how you find out that you were hallucinating the entire time. If the scenario I just described sounds creepy, believe it or not, the creepiness of the experience is what recreational users are so enamored by. Unless you have a hypersensitivity to DPH, these creepy hallucinations will not occur with directed recommended use. These delirious episodes do occur with amounts you should never take. As I mentioned, diphenhydramine is a delirium-inducing deliriant, generating fully convincing false perceptions. Delirium is a neuropsychiatric syndrome characterized by rapid cognitive impairment and disturbance in consciousness, leading to a distorted perception of reality, confusion, hallucinations, and complete disorientations. Delirium can be induced by misuse of DPH, but can also occur for many other reasons: infections, metabolic disturbances, low acetylcholine production, just to name a few. There are 3 types of delirium: hypoactive delirium, which is lethargic, withdrawn, and apathetic. There may be a spacey appearance with an unfocused gaze and sluggish movement in a person. Hyperactive delirium, which is characterized by paranoia, insomnia, agitation, and sometimes aggression and violence. This is the type of delirium most often induced by diphenhydramine. And the third is a mixed delirium, which has alternating characteristics of the two. The anticholinergic effects that we spoke about earlier is what induces delirium. Delirium is similar to dreaming. In this state, you don't question hallucinations. Your brain simply accepts the experience. You may see gnats, spiders, and ticks, and somehow it's accepted by the brain as a normal event. Recreational users have reported walking into random houses, making themselves at home, only to question how and why they entered a stranger's house. There is a whole world of common, bizarre, dark, and very specific hallucinations that users report while experiencing the delirious effects of DPH, something we'll be touching upon in the deeper depths of this iceberg. Earliest Hatman Benadryl Association. The Hatman is a shadow entity described wearing a fedora-styled hat and a trench coat. He is sometimes seen with red eyes and a featureless void of black for a face. In paranormal culture, sightings of the Hatman have been reported as far back as the 1970s, though some believe the origins are ancient, tracing back to voodoo entities such as Baron Samedi or Papa Legba. The association between the Hatman and Benadryl is notorious. It's an extremely common hallucination. The disturbing DPH trend of 2020 was fueled by memes that promised you'd see the Hatman if you took enough DPH. These memes helped this disturbing trend to become viral and led to multiple fatalities. But where did this association between the Hatman and DPH originate? Some believe that people see the Hatman on DPH trips because of how popular the memes became. This does make sense, except for the fact that the association between the Hatman hallucinations and DPH predate the viral trend and the memes. The origin of this connection is hard to trace. On August 14, 2012, a girl named Destiny uploaded a video on YouTube detailing her experience on DPH. She provides insight about her trip that she described as creepy. Her hallucinations included seeing a bowl of gnats that was actually a bowl of chicken, her attempts at trying to spray gnats with bug spray, seeing an imaginary Maltese dog that became a Rottweiler, and describes other trips and oddities in the same video. At one point, she also seems to make an early reference to the Hatman, an entity she referred to as Trenchcoat Guy.
There's this thing about diphenhydramine where people experience things called trench coat guy, where you think you see this guy in a trench coat standing in your peripherals 24/7. It's the scariest shit ever. I've seen him like 30 fucking million times. Every time I trip out, I just see him there, just standing there. And if I stare at him long enough, he'll just disappear. It's really trippy.
In 2010, a user on 420chan posted on the Delirium discussion board, "I've been browsing through this board for months now, and have noticed a lot of people report encountering this shadowy figure referred to as the Hatman. This intrigues me greatly, and I am convinced this is a genuine entity. Considering there have been individuals seeing him while entirely sober and conscious, if you've ever seen/interacted with this thing, please reply and share." The user does mention seeing other users make mention of the Hatman, but those posts he refers to don't seem to be properly archived. As of now, this is the earliest mention of the Hatman in correlation with DPH on the internet. Now, by the way, I am aware that the Hat Man has been mentioned in forums predating 2010, but these reports are not referring to DPH use, so I'm not including those. Attempting to find an earlier DPH Hat Man reference, I turned to Arrowhead, a website dedicated to documenting information about psychoactive substances since 1995. Again, there is no mention of the Hat Man that predates 2010, but there are some trip reports that allude to a Hat Man-like hallucination. In June 2008, a trip report was posted on Arrowhead describing a trip the user experienced in 2005, an experience on diphenhydramine titled Trench-Coated Men and 10-Cent Contracts. For the sake of time, I'm not going to read the report, but the user reports seeing about a dozen men in trench coats walking around on his lawn. He also reports driving while experiencing the effects of DPH, seeing a trench-coated figure in his passenger seat. If you can find any evidence predating the 20th of February 2010 where the Hat Man was associated with DPH, email me. Contact info at the end of the video. Halloween. r/DPH is the most popular subreddit pertaining to the effects of diphenhydramine, but there are many others. While some emphasize harm reduction, others clearly and unfortunately advocate the misuse of DPH. But all of these subreddits follow a similar trend: morbid trip reports, concerning rants, harrowing questions, and other unhinged posts, but it's mostly known for their memes. In these DPH threads, you'll find a mesh of dark humor mixed with DPH schizo posting. Most memes consist of humoring the psychotic hallucinations from diphenhydramine. Some of these memes are dark, but in this culture, that's the point. Shadow People and Hat Man memes are extremely popular, but within the last few years or so, DPH-related Halloween costumes are flooding the internet. Most consist of the Hat Man with another person dressed up as none other than the popular allergy medication. In a lot of ways, this subculture is a lot more mainstream today than it was even 2 years ago. Seeing the Hat Man via diphenhydramine was a very niche rabbit hole, and now it's everywhere. Halloween costumes are just another way the association between the Hat Man and DPH have become more and more ingrained into society's subconscious. We used to call it robo-tripping. I can't tell you the amount of times I've seen comments underneath my DPH videos where people think recreational DPH use is robo-tripping. Well, it's not, and this lack of awareness is actually dangerous. Robo-tripping refers to the recreational effects of the active ingredient found in over-the-counter cough and cold medicine, dextromethorphan, often referred to by its acronym DXM. Robo-tripping is a play on words off the most commonly used brand Robitussin. Dextromethorphan is an antitussive, a cough suppressant, and when ingested in amounts you should never take, DXM acts as a dissociative hallucinogen, producing effects similar to ketamine and PCP. Deliriums like DPH are an entirely different class of hallucinogen. DPH is far more dangerous in hallucinogenic effects, the brain, and bodily harm. Motion sickness. Diphenhydramine played an important role in the discovery of antiemetics, also known as motion sickness medication, and it happened by accident. As we spoke about, DPH is a sedative. In efforts to remove the drowsiness caused by diphenhydramine, pharmaceutical company J.D. Searle aimed to combine diphenhydramine with a stimulant that's formulated as a salt with a caffeine-like substance. The new compound was called dimenhydrinate, often referred to by its acronym DMH. The new compound still made people drowsy, but something unexpected occurred. In 1947, a doctor from Johns Hopkins prescribed diphenhydrinate to a pregnant woman to alleviate her allergies. While on the medication, the woman noticed that she no longer became carsick, something she commonly experienced. This led to a trial where they gave diphenhydrinate to troops crossing the Atlantic Ocean and found that it prevented nausea better than a placebo. Dimenhydrinate was introduced to the market by J.D. Searle in 1949. The anti-nausea substance became marketed as Dramamine. 16G. A report from 2007 details a 47-year-old obese patient who presented to the emergency room only 2 hours after ingesting 460 times the recommended amount of DPH. This amount would most certainly be fatal to pretty much everyone, but somehow he hardly showed symptoms. He only displayed a few hours of impaired consciousness but was otherwise fine. This is an example of how not everyone is going to experience similar effects. This man didn't even report hallucinations. The patient also had a history of heavy smoking, drinking, and took several different medications. A possible cause for this seeming immunity is that DPH is a fat-soluble, and when a person has high body fat, less DPH ends up being distributed to the bloodstream. Either way, this is a rare medical anomaly, but it's not the only one. The largest non-lethal medically documented OD is detailed in a case report from 1997, which describes a 35-year-old woman who presented to the emergency room after ingesting 640 times the recommended amount of DPH. Using the Glasgow Coma Scale Score, which is an assessment tool used to measure how conscious a person is, she scored an 8, which meant she was in a coma. 10 minutes after her arrival to the emergency room, she experienced generalized seizures. Several emergency procedures were carried out, such as endotracheal intubation, charcoal hemoperfusion, and hemodialysis. She was also administered various infusions, such as dopamine and epinephrine, to name a few. Though an episode of adult respiratory distress syndrome prolonged her stay, she left the ICU on the 11th hospital day and was released to go home on the 15th hospital day, nearly fully recovered. OD from topical application. We've seen DPH in the news numerous times for unfortunate reasons. It's almost always a case where someone ingested way too many tablets or a liquid form of diphenhydramine, but what about the anti-itch cream and anti-itch spray? Can a cream or spray containing diphenhydramine produce similar effects to its orally ingested counterpart? And can it be lethal? In short, yes and yes. If applied to large areas or open wounds, diphenhydramine can still be absorbed into the bloodstream and produce effects such as delirium. Children are especially at risk. There are many documented cases. For example, an 8-year-old boy was administered excessive amounts of Caladryl lotion and Benadryl spray to soothe the symptoms of chickenpox. The excessive application resulted in hallucinations. Excessive and consistent application can even be fatal. When a 17-month-old boy had flare-ups caused by eczema, his parents applied anti-itch DPH cream in an attempt to help the symptoms, which resulted in death. Adult cases involving topical application have only 2 known fatal reports. In one case, a person accidentally orally ingested topical diphenhydramine cream, and the other is a lot more haunting. A 23-year-old male was found dead in his apartment in Japan. The autopsy report concluded that he had died of hypothermia during spring. The man was found unresponsive on the bathroom floor with water from the faucet running on his back. He had no known pre-existing medical conditions, no trauma to the brain or to his internal organs, and any possibility of a crime was ruled out. The man was known to habitually use a topical diphenhydramine cream, Japanese brand, Restamine Koa ointment. Because there was a large volume of urine retained in the bladder, it's assumed that the deceased man was unconscious for approximately 1 day. Toxicological analysis detected DPH below the toxic range in the blood, but at high concentration in the urine. The amount of DPH was enough to impair him so much that the cold running water from the faucet wasn't enough to wake him up. The water slowly lowered his body temperature and eventually caused him to freeze to death. The sedative effects were induced through excess absorption through the skin into the bloodstream from extreme and consistent application over large areas of the body. Origins of diphenhydramine. In the early 1940s, George Revachol was a chemical engineering professor at the University of Cincinnati. He was interested in chemicals he could use as an antispasmodic or muscle relaxer. In 1943, alongside his student Fred Huber, diphenhydramine was synthesized for the first time. During initial testing, Revachol found that the compound was effective at blocking the effects of histamine, the body's chemical response to allergens and inflammation. Revachol left the university to work for Detroit-based pharmaceutical company, Parke-Davis. There, diphenhydramine was tested on guinea pigs and found that it did calm smooth muscles, and it proved effective at blocking the adverse effects of histamine. On April 18, 1944, a U.S. patent was submitted, and Parke-Davis started marketing the benzyl hydroether in 1946 as Benadryl. Benadryl is a first-generation antihistamine, which is why it's riddled with nasty side effects, even with recommended use, most notably drowsiness. Second-generation antihistamines, such as loratadine and fexofenadine, work more efficiently, last longer, without the drowsiness.
Hey, what's up guys, it's Snook, and on to Tier 2. Twitter Takedown. X, formerly known as Twitter, is known for being the Wild West of social media. Almost anything can be posted there, so when Benadryl, yes the company, had an official Twitter account, it became grounds for vicious daily trolling. Companies create official profiles on social platforms for relatability and connectivity alongside promotional reasons. The responses companies give on social media platforms are curated, proper, and predictable, and why wouldn't they be? We all know that a company's worst fear is being canceled. Within DPH circles, probably the most integral piece to a morbid subculture are the memes, the inside jokes, making the absurd and the dark something to laugh over. You have to imagine that online communities formed over the misuse of an allergy medication has to be a PR nightmare for the company. Hey Benadryl, I was just wondering, how many milligrams I have to take to start feeling spiders under my skin? Thanks. This is just one of many examples of the daily tweets the official account received. Every now and then, whether it be out of frustration or maybe even an attempt to troll back, Benadryl did have some odd responses. People would spam replications, which are visual representations / simulations of what a DPH trip really looks like. Not to mention users trolling the official account by allegedly claiming that they ingested dangerous amounts. Users would spam bizarre questions, and of course, the memes. Aside from screenshots that can still be found on subreddits, there's no proper online archive of all the madness that took place, but it got so bad that Benadryl decided to terminate their official account. It is unclear when they created the account, but we know the official Benadryl Twitter account was taken down when X was still called Twitter, sometime in early 2023. Benadryl was completely trolled off Twitter. The first documented OD. The first intentional documented OD via diphenhydramine occurred on April 11, 1982. The victim was a 14-year-old girl who took 300 times the recommended amount in the span of 30 minutes. The victim experienced a tonic-clonic seizure characterized by the body becoming stiff, a loss of consciousness, and followed by convulsing. After her brother found her, the paramedics were called. After numerous endeavors to save her life at the hospital, she was declared brain dead within a span of a day. And the first accidental OD occurred in 1949, only 3 years after DPH was in the market. A 2-year-old weighing 27 pounds accidentally ingested 19 times the standard amount. When the mother found the child consuming the contents of a bottle, she rushed him to the hospital where many endeavors were implemented to save his life, which ultimately failed. Only 13 hours later, he was pronounced dead. Parkinson's disease. Benadryl has proven effective at managing the symptoms of Parkinson's disease. The use of Benadryl for Parkinson's was first tried on a patient in 1946, the same year it first became marketed. The patient noticed considerable improvements. He experienced less tremors, swallowing became easier, and his drooling stopped, and was overall less shaky and nervous, and was able to walk with more ease. Similar improvements were observed in more patients in further trials. Parkinson's is primarily caused by the degeneration and death of nerve cells in the brain responsible for producing dopamine. This creates irregular brain activity. The anti-chlorogenic properties of diphenhydramine is what helps manage the movement symptoms of Parkinson's disease. By blocking acetylcholine receptors, it temporarily restores some of the chemical imbalance in the brain responsible for movement and coordination. As you'd imagine, these improvements have been known to come at a cost, especially in the elderly. As we age, our body produces less and less acetylcholine, and the functionality of it begins to decline as well. Further complicating the natural decline of acetylcholine with a substance that blocks its function even more can wreak havoc on the brain. Restless Leg Syndrome. While diphenhydramine has been found to successfully mitigate tremors and other movement issues caused by Parkinson's, it's also a known trigger of restless leg syndrome. Restless leg syndrome, or RLS, is a brain, nerve, and sleep condition that involves an overwhelming urge to move the legs. This strange impulse can be at least partially alleviated with movement. Uncomfortable sensations in the legs may include throbbing, aching, leg twitching, and overall discomfort. Those affected with RLS say that the condition is like having an unscratchable itch. Because symptoms of restless leg syndrome get worse at rest, the discomfort only often occurs or gets worse in the evening or at night, leading to difficulty sleeping or staying asleep. First generation antihistamines, especially ones that have sedating properties such as DPH, are known risks for restless leg syndrome. They have been associated with triggering or worsening the condition. Recreational DPH users have found this out the hard way, some stating this is one of the worst aspects of taking amounts you should never take. This is just another reason why you should never misuse DPH. Allergic to allergy pills. The intended purpose of Benadryl is to be used for allergies. DPH is a first-generation antihistamine which works by blocking the effects of histamine, a chemical released by the body that causes allergy symptoms. While many consider these medications lifesavers during allergy season, is it possible to be allergic to an allergy pill? It is, and while some may experience itching, hives, swelling, and blisters from a standard dose of DPH, others can have fatal consequences. Anaphylaxis is a severe, potentially life-threatening allergic reaction. Anaphylaxis causes the immune system to release an overload of chemicals that can cause you to go into shock. Blood pressure drops, airways tighten, and breathing becomes shallow. If not treated, this can be fatal. Hypersensitivity reactions to antihistamines such as diphenhydramine are rare. In fact, from 1949 to 2013, a total of 9 reactions to H1 antihistamine were documented in 7 patients. Only one of these reactions were due to DPH. In this case, a single standard dose of DPH was enough to send the patient into full anaphylaxis within a few minutes. Bill Cosby. Bill Cosby is a disgraced former comedian and media personality who has been accused by over 60 women of heinous acts, including drug-facilitated SA and rape. Some victims were underage. These allegations stem from 1965 through 2008. Cosby was known to use his position of power to manipulate young women into vulnerable situations, inviting them to hotel rooms, often providing quaaludes in order to, quote, help them relax. In court documents from 2005, Cosby admitted in a sworn deposition that he obtained 7 prescriptions of quaaludes with intent to give the sedatives to young women. But another substance Bill Cosby admitted to using in order to facilitate his disgusting acts was Benadryl. Cosby would refer to pills as friends and would offer them to victims. Cosby victim Shalane Lasha states that in 1986, Cosby offered her an antihistamine and a shot of Amaretto. In the case of Andrea Constand, Cosby admitted to specifically using Benadryl to sedate her. Multiple accusers were given the antihistamine, but others weren't offered the substance. Instead, their drink was laced. This is actually a growing problem. There's been a disturbing rise in the use of DPH and alcohol in order for criminals to facilitate their predatory behavior. A liquid form of the allergy medication is slipped into an alcoholic drink. The effects of alcohol actually amplify the sedative effects caused by diphenhydramine and can result in complete unconsciousness, which is another reason to always keep an eye on your drink in public places. Hospitals now test for diphenhydramine in date rape cases. Also, due to a legal technicality, Cosby is now a free man. Very unfortunate. Children's formulation. Alongside capsules, DPH is marketed in liquid and children formulations, and because of its sedative effects, parents may be inclined to reach for a bottle to settle their kids down for bed. Experts agree that this is a dangerous practice that has even led to fatalities. While diphenhydramine is a sedative, 10 to 15% of children will have the opposite effect and display hyperactivity. This occurs because DPH can stimulate the central nervous system, resulting in paradoxical excitation. A restless child is no reason to reach for DPH. Many accidental ODs have been documented involving infants and young children, obviously administered by parents and babysitters, with many admitting they were trying to induce sleep. With all the brain deteriorating risks we've spoken about, consulting with a physician is the best option when it comes to any DPH administration, for any reason involving children. DPH Bible. I Love DPH. Twisted Tales of Delirium Volume 1 is an ebook often referred to as the DPH Bible. It was written by Reddit user and self-proclaimed DPH master F.A. Costello. F.A. Costello was an entry in the first DPH Iceberg, but for first-time viewers, here's a recap. F.A. Costello is the creator of subreddit r/ILoveDPH. He claims to have knowledge imparted by the Hatman himself. He believes in the Hatman spirituality, even referring to the Hatman as his eternal father. F.A. Costello believes that when a person dies, they return to Ariel, a dimension allegedly reached during a near-fatal DPH trip. He claims to always be on low amounts of DPH. He talks in cutesy language, often intentionally misspelling words. He has a small niche following, though some believe his online presence is entirely satire. He also has an alleged secret subreddit called DPH Lovers Secret Club, a club you can only join if you allegedly take DPH and ask the Hatman for permission. Cryptic Candy attempted to infiltrate the club by submitting his Hatman tattoo in 2023, but this attempt sadly failed. Twisted Tales of Delirium is the alleged winner of Critics' Choice DPH Literature in Redditor Spotlight Best Book of 2020. These awards are obviously made up. The so-called DPH Bible is written in Costello's signature cutesy language with the intentional misspelling. Welcome, DPH friends. This is simply EPIB. The book displays various violent visions and impulses due to excess DPH. He displays something he calls a delectable breakfast, which includes vodka and toast sprinkled with Dramamine capsules. It includes poems dedicated to the Hatman, and as you probably expected, there is a lot of Hatman praise throughout the book. The book reads like a satire schizo post though. There are portions where F.A. Costello seems particularly vulnerable and honest about his addiction problem. The first volume was published in 2020 and has stated that Volume 2 will be coming soon. And alright guys, that wraps up Tier 2. A big shout out to Cryptic Candy for inviting me out, and subscribe to him, he's the man. And anyways, handing it back off to him and on to Tier 3.
Well, actually, Tier 3 will be in the part 2 of this video series. And again, I'm aiming for 100 total entries. This video only had 19. So the next video has to have 31 so I can be on track to hit the 100 entries in 4 videos. If you have any suggestions or any information that you think will be useful, email me at cryptidcandytv@gmail.com. You can also talk to me directly by joining my Discord server, the Hatman Archives. Also, I'm going to drop other videos in between this video and the part 2 to it, so just expect another video very, very soon. A big shout out to Snook for the feature, and it might be a little surprising, but me and Snook actually are longtime friends, and he's just one of the most genuine people, and he's just so cool. So definitely subscribe to his channel, which I'll link in the description. All my links, Patreon, my merch, all that stuff in the description, as you know already probably. Anyway, thank you for spending your time with me, and as always, I will see you in the next one.